Okay, so are you ready to dive deep into some seriously cool science?
Always. What are we tackling today?
Well, today we're getting microscopic, diving into the inner workings of our cells.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Specifically, something called ribosomal DNA.
Or rDNA for short.
Exactly. And let me tell you, the research you sent in on this from Nature Communications has got me hooked.
It's such a fascinating area of research. I mean, rDNA, it basically provides the instructions to build ribosomes. Yeah,
Rhizomes.
like tiny factories inside your cells. They're churning out proteins nonstop.
Proteins. Okay, those are important, right? For like life and stuff.
Absolutely. They're the workhorses of the cell, essential for pretty much everything.
Okay, wow. So this rDNA stuff, it's got a pretty big job to do then, huh?
Yeah, you could say that.
But this research you sent in, it talks about how unstable rDNA actually is. Is that right?
Yeah, it is surprisingly unstable. It's like, imagine trying to build a house, but the foundation is constantly shifting.
Oh, no, that's not good.
No, not at all. And to really understand this whole instability thing, researchers have been looking at a rare genetic disorder called Bloom syndrome.
Bloom syndrome. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's super rare. But what's so interesting is by studying these rare cases, it can actually reveal a lot about how things work for the rest of us.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a glitch in the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like finding a glitch in a complex machine,
Yeah.
studying that glitch can teach us a lot about how the machine operates normally.
So Bloom syndrome, it's like a keyhole that lets us peek into this normally hidden world of rDNA and DNA repair.
You got it. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. And what they're finding is really changing how we think about these processes.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
So tell me more about this Bloom syndrome connection.
Well, people with Bloom syndrome have a much higher risk of cancer and a lot of other health problems.
Oh, wow.
And a key part of that seems to be linked to what's happening with their rDNA.
So we're starting to see how this microscopic world of rDNA, it can have some huge real-world consequences, right?
Absolutely.
We're talking faulty blueprints for essential cell parts, increased vulnerability to diseases. I mean, this is serious stuff.
It is serious stuff. And it gets even more interesting when we look at the specific proteins that are involved in this whole rDNA repair process.
So we're talking rDNA repair. Is there like a dedicated repair crew for that, or are there just general purpose proteins involved?
It's a bit of both, actually.
Yeah.
You've got your general purpose DNA repair proteins that are working all over the cell.
Right.
But what's so cool is how they operate differently when it comes to rDNA. It's like they have a specialized role in this part of the cell.
Okay, so walk me through it. What are the key players on this like rDNA repair team?
So there are two proteins at the heart of this research, BLM and rED51. They're both involved in different stages of DNA repair and, well, their interaction, or I guess lack of interaction in Bloom syndrome is what makes this so interesting.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. Let's start with BLM. What's its role?
Okay, so picture this. BLM is like this meticulous editor who's carefully going through a manuscript looking for any mistakes. And when it finds a damaged section of DNA, its job is to trim those damaged ends so it can be repaired.
Uh-huh.
And this isn't just any manuscript. We're talking about the blueprint for life itself, your DNA.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a pretty high-stakes editing job.
You can say that again.
So what happens in Bloom syndrome? Does BLM just like go on strike?
You could say that. In people with Bloom syndrome, the BLM protein is faulty. So it's like the editor's constantly getting distracted. You know, they're missing typos and making cuts in the wrong places.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not good. It really throws the whole repair process off.
And that's where RD51 comes in.
Exactly. So rED51 is like the writer, maybe a little overeager, trying to meet a deadline. But its job is to take those edited DNA strands and kind of stitch them back together. You know, create a cohesive story.
Okay, I'm with you.
So even if BLM, our editor, is making a mess of things, rED51 is still going to rush in and try to piece everything together.
So it's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. Like that kind of rush job might seem helpful at the time, but long term.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a recipe for disaster.
All right.
This uncontrolled rED51 activity, it has some serious consequences. The research actually shows that it can lead to the formation of micronuclei.
Micronuclei. Okay, first of all, how do you even say that word?
Nuclei.
Micronuclei. Okay, I think I almost got it.
You'll get it.
But what are they?
Basically, they're like rogue fragments of your genome, your cell's complete set of instructions.
Rogue fragments. Okay, now I'm really lost.
Okay, so imagine your genome is like this carefully organized library.
Okay.
And each book has these specific instructions for the cell.
I like this analogy. Keep going.
Okay, so micronuclei are like Random pages or even entire chapters ripped out of those books and then just scattered randomly around the library.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, now I get what you mean by rogue fragments.
And when that cell divides, you know how our bodies grow and repair themselves?
Right.
Those rogue pieces, they get passed along, and that can lead to all sorts of problems and errors in those new cells.
So let me get this straight. We've got faulty editing from BLM, overeager patching by rAD51, and all of this leads to rogue pieces of genetic information just floating around. And it's all because of instability in rDNA.
That's it. You've got it.
See, I told you I'd get it, but this is kind of scary when you think about it.
And remember, this is all happening within the rDNA, which is responsible for making those ribosomes, the protein factories.
Oh man, so if the rDNA is messed up, the ribosomes might be messed up, which means the proteins they build could be messed up too. It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. It's like a cascade of problems just waiting to happen.
So this isn't just a problem for people with Bloom syndrome, is it? This rDNA instability, I mean, it could be impacting everyone.
You're absolutely right. And that's where the implications of this research go way beyond just Bloom syndrome.
Okay, so let's talk about the bigger picture then. What does this research mean for, like, our understanding of just health and diseases in general? Okay, so before the break, we were talking about rDNA instability, and it just blows my mind how something so tiny can have such huge effects.
It really does. It just shows how interconnected everything is inside our cells. Like one thing goes wrong and it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, that one thing is the instability in this rDNA. So you mentioned before the break that this research has like bigger implications beyond just Bloom syndrome.
Yeah.
So connect the dots for me. What's the bigger picture?
Well, you know how every single cell in your body, it has to be able to repair its DNA accurately, right?
Yeah, it's like essential for life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when that DNA repair process gets messed up, it's a hallmark of a lot of diseases, including cancer.
So you're saying this rDNA instability, this microscopic mayhem, it could actually be contributing to cancer.
It's definitely a possibility, and researchers are really digging into that now. You see, faulty rDNA, it can cause problems with how the ribosomes function. And remember, those ribosomes, they're responsible for building all the proteins our cells need.
Oh, right, right.
And some of those proteins are really important for controlling cell growth and cell division. So if those proteins aren't built right because of faulty rDNA, well, it's like hitting the gas pedal on cell growth. You increase the risk of cells growing out of control.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not just the rogue DNA fragments directly, but it's also this ripple effect they have on the entire protein production line.
You got it. And that's not even all of it. This research also impacts how we understand other genetic diseases too, because a lot of those diseases are caused by mutations in the genes that are responsible for DNA repair. So by understanding how this repair mechanism works, like specifically in rDNA, it could give us clues into how those mutations are messing things up in other parts of the cell.
So we're taking this very specific example, rDNA repair, and using it to try and understand this bigger picture of how our cells are protecting their genetic information, which is pretty valuable.
Exactly. And that's really important if we want to develop new therapies and treatments.
So how does this research translate into actual treatments or ways to prevent these problems? What are the next steps here?
That is the million-dollar question. And researchers are looking at a bunch of different avenues. One possibility for people with Bloom syndrome is finding a way to maybe correct or support that faulty BLM protein. Like imagine if we could create a drug that helps BLM do its job the right way and prevents those errors from even happening.
That would be incredible.
Right.
But what about for the rest of us, those of us who don't have Bloom syndrome but still have this like kind of unstable rDNA going on?
Well, that's where understanding rAD51 better is really important. If we can figure out exactly how and why it gets so overactive when BLM isn't working properly, then we might be able to develop really targeted therapies that stop it from doing more harm than good. It's all about balance.
Yeah, balance, yeah. It's like our bodies are these finely tuned machines.
Exactly. And don't forget, this research also gives us a new way to look at aging, too. Because as we get older, our cells, they get worse at repairing DNA damage. And that buildup of damage, well, that's a big part of why we get age-related diseases.
So this research is about so much more than just one rare disease or a couple of proteins. It's really about these fundamental processes that impact all of us. Cancer, genetic diseases, aging. Wow, we really did take a deep dive today.
That's the amazing thing about science, right? What seems like a small niche area of research can actually unlock these huge insights into human health.
Absolutely. This was amazing. Thank you so much for geeking out with me on this one.
Anytime. It was my pleasure.
This has been so eye-opening.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to go look at my cells under a microscope now. And for everyone listening, I hope this sparked your curiosity about the incredible world that's happening inside your own bodies. Keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.